On July 18, 2023, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was fatally shot outside of a Gurdwara in Surrey, Vancouver. Nijjar, an immigrant citizen of Canada, also a vocal leader of the Khalistan movement, was claimed as a terrorist by India. The Sikh Separatist movement has been a long-standing point of tension between Canada and India. And on September 18th, when PM Justin Trudeau accused Indian intelligence behind the assassination of Nijjar, tensions between the nations were at an all-time high. British takeover of Khalistan, attack of the Golden Temple, brink of civilization on multiple occasions, assassination of the PM, and still tensions keep rising.
Canada has declared its deep concerns to the top intelligence and security officials of the Indian government. Last week at the G20, I brought them personally and directly to Prime Minister Modi in no uncertain terms. Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
India and Canada. Let's talk about it. So, what is the Khalistani movement, Ashul?
So the topic of Khalistan again is in the news, but it is not a new issue that India is going through. It has been an existing and an ongoing concern since the time of independence. It has been a long journey of demands, commitments, betrayals, and bloodshed among communities. So it all began when the Sikh Empire fell at the hands of the British Empire in 1823. So the British Empire at the time of India's independence decided to separate the land for the Muslim and the Hindu communities. And then the Sikh, they wanted a land for themselves as well called Sikhistan. But then that was rejected by the British Empire as their population was a very small population. So the partition divided Punjab into two parts, one being in India and the other one being in Pakistan. That took a heavy toll on the Sikhs as they were forced to change locations and be in a part of that violence. So the States Reorganization Act in 1956 divided the states on a language-speaking basis. So the Telugu-speaking community got Andhra Pradesh, for example, and Marathi-speaking community got Maharashtra. So the Sikh wanted a land, Punjab, just for themselves, with Punjabi being the official language. That was also rejected. But then due to the ferocious contributions in the 1965 India-Pakistan war, the Sikh community gave a brilliant contribution to the Indian army. And then the Indian government realized the importance of the Sikh community and then approved of their demands and then made Punjab a separate state, divided it into three states, Haryana, Punjab and Himachal Pradesh. And then also made Punjabi an official language of the state. So their demands were met. So in the late 1970s, Sikh political party grew in prominence with a man named Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. Now this is a prominent figure in the Sikh political history and the Khalistani movement.
Yeah, and even regaining the Sikh pride that they're kind of lost, right?
Yeah.
So
Bhindranwale and his group resided in the Golden Temple in 1984. So they thought that they would be safe and nobody would be able to attack them in such a holy and religious site for the Sikhs. But that was wrong. In 1984, Operation Blue Star happened, led by the initiative of the then PM Indira Gandhi. So Operation Blue Star happened, which caused heavy damages to the Golden Temple. And obviously they put an end to the Bhindranwale group. But the damages the Golden Temple suffered, the entire Sikh community around the world saw it as an instant act of aggression against the religion and the community itself.
Yeah, and Bhindranwale was also dead.
He
was killed in this holy grounds.
Yes.
So it was really a point of contention between now Indian and Sikhs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So 5 months after that Operation Blue Star, India's then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was assassinated by her two Sikh bodyguards. Now this was a huge
18
point.
shots apparently.
Yes. That was an act of revenge.
Yeah.
And then this fueled an ever-increasing tension between the Hindus and the Sikhs, which led to anti-Sikh riots in the western part, the Punjab and Delhi and Haryana, those parts of India.
Yeah. And we also saw parts of it in the movie Lal Singh Chadda, right? How they covered it.
Yes.
Right? Like the Sikh, anti-Sikh movement.
Yes.
So
Exactly. So this result of the anti-Sikh riots, the mass killings and the hate against the Sikhs led to the mass exodus of Sikhs from India, and then they resided in countries such as Canada. So in the 1984 elections, after Indira Gandhi died, her son won by a landslide, Rajiv Gandhi, of course. And then Rajiv Gandhi wanted to make it a priority of this Punjab controversy. But then he promised to give Chandigarh to Punjab. But he backed away from this promise as soon as he realized that his Haryana's Hindu votes would be gone if he gave Chandigarh to Punjab. So he is still criticized for this move to this day. So Sikhs once again resided in Golden Temple, and then that gave birth to the Operation Black Thunder.
This time
1 and
around
2.
seeking protection for the people,
Yes.
right? Yeah, because there was so much tension regarding the Sikhs and then like the other, other religious people that like they had to go back to the Golden Temple as a land of like religious site where there might not happen any more killings.
Yes.
Right? So yeah.
So yes, that gave birth to the Operation Black Thunder 1 and 2, which happened in 1986 and 88 respectively. So this time there was no harm done to the people or the temple. And then they conducted this military operation successfully and then put an end to these Sikh protests. So slowly the situation seemed to be brought under control by the government by giving Sikh leaders some importance in Indian politics, giving them roles as MPs and MLAs in India's parliament, and also making Manmohan Singh the Prime Minister of India in 2004, which was thought to be a move to please the Sikhs. Yeah. Now again, things seem to be okay until 2015. An actor named Deep Sindhu, who was also an activist, died in a car crash, and this was seen as an act of aggression against the Sikh community again. So tension started rising. And now, a prominent figure at the moment in Sikh politics and Khalistani movement is a man named Amritpal Singh. So he is leading basically the Khalistani movement. And so Canada, being big on freedom of speech and all that, has openly allowed the Khalistani protests and riots to take place in the country. Now, this is also one of the reasons which has fueled the tensions between India and Canada so high, because they've been letting them conduct these operation and riots and protests. Basically, this is what the crux of this entire Khalistani movement is. And
so the thing is, there's so much population of Sikh Canadians in Canada, right?
Yeah.
And we also have to understand that during the time of strife and like very like tough times on the Sikh people in India, these were some of the people that were sending back the money to the country, right? Like fueling the Punjabi economy and all that, right? So that means these people are also deeply rooted for the cause.
Yes.
And the cause that's been going on since 1823.
Yes.
Right? So that really puts the whole thing into the context of that, like, okay, why are there protests about Khalistan happening in Canada? And then that also puts context on the whole thing about why Canada is not saying anything about these like protests. Is because they share, like, when you're making constitutions for countries and all that, you're basically taking some things from some country, some things from some country. And because Canada is so close to America, most of the constitution things are either British or American. And American freedom of speech, we know that this is such a huge issue in America or North America as a whole.
Yeah.
So that means even Canadians, like, they put this as a topmost priority.
Freedom of speech.
Right?
Yes.
So I think that's why Canada it looks like Canada is not saying anything about it because it's a constitutional right. But then I think Indian are perceiving it, like Indian community and Indian politics is like thinking about this in the sense that, like, okay, you are playing a part by not playing a part.
Yes, exactly. You are letting them do it, and that is harming our country in such a way.
Yeah. And during the research, we also found out that, like, it's not this incident that just like deteriorated the relationship like then and there on 18th of September, right?
Yeah.
It's been a thing that's been going on for ages. Because of this whole Sikhistan thing and then the Khalistani movement, this has been going on in Canada for a while, and then the Indian government has not appreciated this for ages.
Yes.
Right? So this has been a point of contention that we have talked about earlier, right? Like this has been a point of contention between these two nations because of that as well, So yeah, it's a very complicated issue, man.
So yeah, this was basically the summary of the history and the prominent events in the Khalistani movement. So let's talk about what's happening now.
So yeah, like I said, on September 18th, right, Justin Trudeau, the apparently a very comical PM nowadays,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Welcoming Nazis into the,
What was
you
that?
know, right?
Yeah.
The due diligence team. Oh my God, it's such a slap on the face of the country. And then the other funny thing was Vladimir Zelensky was present there.
I don't know how that happens at such a big
oh
level.
my God, right? Like such an embarrassing moment.
Exactly,
And
yes.
then now there's also talks about like Trudeau never taking the blame for some of the things that he does. You know, for example, he wasn't able to leave India after the G20 thing.
Yeah.
And apparently, like, you know, some of the people in Canada made the mistake, right? And not the team that takes care of the presidential travel and all that.
Yeah.
So we have seen that like Trudeau has been now kind of a funny figure, right? And then on 18th of September, Justin Trudeau accused the Indian intelligence of involvement in killing Hardeep Singh Nijjar that we have already talked about,
Yeah.
right? And then they have not provided any substantial evidence.
Nope, they've just accused.
Yeah. So what did and not just that, right? What did Canada also do? Canada also ordered the top Indian diplomat, Pravan Kumar Rai, who led the Canadian branch of research and analysis wing. By the way, guess what that is?
Raw.
Yeah,
That is such a bad-
such a simple name for the whole thing,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, so the guy who was the leader of RAW in Canada was expelled from the country, right? As soon as the accusation was made, he was not given any time. He was told to like leave the country as soon as possible, right? So because of that, what happened is now it became like you did this, an eye for an eye thing.
Yes.
Right? And we all know an eye for an eye makes the world go blind. So the government of India rejects the claim immediately. They say that this is an absurd and motivated thing, right? Further deteriorating the relationship between Canada and India, right? Because a PM of a country is accusing the other nation straight up, you know? And if there was proof or something,
Without an actual evidence.
right? Like then India would have to bend the knee and help with the investigation, right? But if there is no proof, then there's always like you have to give the benefit of the doubt, like you know, innocent until proven guilty. So this has to come into play. So India outright like denies the whole claim, and then like the relationship deteriorates more, and then Cameron McKay, this guy, the High Commissioner of Canada in India,
Yeah.
right, was summoned to the Ministry of External Affairs, right? And then summoning is an important thing, right? Like generally you're summoned because there's something important that's happened and you have to discuss about this and all. The whole summoning process took 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, and in that 5 minutes, the Ministry of External Affairs told the Canadian commissioner to leave the country within 5 days, right, in a tit for tat move.
Yeah.
Right, because the leader of RAW was told
expelled.
to
leave. So now Adam McKay.
Yeah, I did
right?
see that video. He was furious when he walked out.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Yeah,
did see
that was hilarious because you see him when he's walking in, he's so stoic. And then like when he's leaving, it's so like different. But anyways, Cameron McKay was told to leave within the 5 days that was allotted to him. And then since then, the tensions have escalated more, right? Because then what happened the very next day? The very next day, the government of India tells everyone, all the Indian nationals that are present in Canada, whether it be students or people that are there for work, specialized or something otherwise, right, to be cautious because of the anti-Indian activity and politically condoned hate crimes.
Yes.
Because of this, all the people that are involved in this whole thing, like whether it be Canadians in India or Indians in Canada, now the tension's rising. They're kind of scared for the whole thing, you know. And then as a retaliation move, right now it's like I said, it became a tit for tat thing, right? Because of that, it's a retaliation move. Canada advised all the Canadians to strongly they strongly advise the Canadians to not go to India.
Yeah.
And if you are in India, be very safe because again, the very same thing they implied that like, you know, politically driven hate crimes or condoned hate crimes might take place, you know. So this is now it's just getting out of hand. Everything is going crazy. And because of the highly unpredictable security situation amongst these two like biggest nation in terms of land size as well as economy it's starting to become a very weird tension that is kind of like making the whole world as a whole nervous, you know. And then because of that, India has completely halted the service, like visa providing service for Canada.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that means now nobody can travel to Canada from India. Maybe if you're a foreign diplomat or something like that from India that has to go to Canada to talk this thing out or like, you know, calmly what do we say, mellow out the situation.
Yeah. Or maybe if you already have a visa, maybe you can go. But then they're not issuing new visas.
Yeah, I think, I don't think they're issuing new one.
Yeah.
I think you can still travel, but then again, strongly advise against it, or like be very cautious.
Didn't the Indian students in Canada get a cautionary message from the Indian government?
Which I think is a little bit of an overreaction in certain extent, because there are some states and like communities that do not really mind about any of this, you know.
Yes.
But there will be some states in Canada or like communities that will take the wrath of it, because we saw the riots, right? Like stamping on Narendra Modi, the PM of India, posters, or like stamping on the Indian flag and all that. All the Sikh people doing it, you know. So yeah, it's become a weird scenario. Anyways, Minister of External Affairs were the one that announced all of this, that like now the visa service and all of this is going to be cancelled, and this is the Ministry of External Affairs of India. There are also cancellation of government visits between the country. You know, because they were supposed to have. So generally government visits are like planned months and years in advance, right? And then Canada and India, because of the growing tensions they had before, they had tried to kind of, you know, like make better relationship in terms of business, politically, you know, help each other out, accords and all that. But those visits now are also cancelled.
Yeah.
Right? And then G20 was such a success for India. So now this thing has put a damper on that as well a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And then also the trade and other political, economical parties have completely, practices have completely stopped between India and Canada. So this has become a very iffy situation. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think some of the repercussions could be to this feud then?
I think the implications of this could be huge in terms of economies, on the people living in both the countries. So the globalization of world economies, right? And these two countries are huge in terms of every aspect you see it. Military, land, and economies are huge. And then this could have a huge impact because the two countries are now, you know, embedded in this huge web of globalization. And then this could have huge implications on the other countries as well. Now, we had the COVID crisis, economic crisis. We had the Russian and Ukrainian war. And now this could be a new thing that could, you know, dampen the economy, you know, affect so many people. So that's that. And then the impact on the Indian students and workers that are already maybe in Canada or that are issuing their new visa to work or study in Canada are also suffering now, because now they've completely stopped it because of that the issues that are emerging. And talking
on the flip side as well, right? Like the Canadians in India as well.
Canadians in India as well. So talking about America, doesn't this put America in a tough pickle, as you know, now America are strong and old allies with Canada as well, and then they want to strengthen their relationship with India according to the Indo-Pacific Accords as well. So I think they will take a stance. America is not the one who lets things slide. They will take a stance. I think they have a decision to make, you know, in front of them, and let's see what happens.
Go on.
But then in context of Nepal, now again the same thing as Indian students and workers. The Nepali students and workers that are applying for a visa permit for Canada now have been that process has been halted because Nepal does not have a Canadian embassy. So the visas and the passports get stamped approval from India's New Delhi's in a Canadian embassy. So that has stopped. Thus it means that Nepal's Canadian visa has also stopped. So the suffering is in part in Nepal as well.
Yeah, and around 45,000 students, like per semester, go to Canada.
Yes,
right.
Recently, there's been a huge influx in numbers in Canada.
So all that is also taken a hit.
Yes.
And then a lot of people go for lorry driving or all this, you know, to make a better living out there in Canada and all that. And all that's also stopped. So very peculiar times nowadays, huh? You never
Lucky
know.
are the ones whose visa just got approved before this feud.
And can you specify who are these lucky people, Ashwal?
That's me.
Of course, Ashwal is going to complete going to study his bachelor's in Canada. And luckily, he was able to get his visa before the whole process started.
Yeah.
So thank God that took place. But for some of the other people that are going through this scenario, it's such a tough thing, right?
It's tough, yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be a while before I think it concludes. But anyways, okay, so to conclude this whole thing, we have to be very clear that this is just a very superficial level coverage of the Khalistan movement and the Indian-Canadian relationship, because there are so many complicated issues in this, right? Like when we were doing the research, it was so hectic. That's why we had to go through like 1823.
Yes.
Right, and then we had to look at all this different map of Sikhistan before and all this and all that. So it was an interesting thing, and we learned so much during the research. But it's a very complicated issue and very complex topic to just like mull over within a 20 minutes video or something like that. But what we can say is that this will give you a cursory understanding of the relationship between the countries, one, and then the Khalistan movement, right, which is fueling the whole thing.
Yes.
So I think it's going to be at least a cursory understanding of this, and then we'll add some of the links and the videos that we saw in our description below, so that you guys can do your own research, and if you want to learn more or find out more, then you can take the reins from there as well. But anything else you want to add, Ashwal?
So yeah, basically our research, we tried to concise it as much as possible, because it's a 200-year history and then so many political implications and this and that. But then we've tried to do our best to summarize this whole thing, and I hope you guys liked it. And plus, I hope it gets better though. I hope this does not deteriorate to some World War III shouts were going on, right?
Oh yeah, the theories that's coming out, it's very scary, man. Like the BRICS summit that we covered, right? And then now this.
Yeah.
Right, like it's almost like the West versus East, and then the Russian thing with the NATO and everything. So it's kind of looking like West versus East is like just happening all the way over. Like I don't know.
You the West side or the East side?
I don't know. But yeah, I just hope everything gets better, and yeah, that's pretty much it on my end as well. And yeah, any final words?
Yeah, let's hope for the best, and let's hope that the tensions lighten up.
All right. Okay, so thank you so much for tuning in to the Podcast Bros again. I hope you guys got some knowledge from this video, and we'll tune into the next one. Peace!